Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radhe. Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radhe. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Gaura Premanandi. Jai Mishupad Paramahamsa Pri Rajgacharya Stotra Satya Sri Simar, His Divine Grace, Hirabhai Charan Arvind Bhakti Vedanta Swami Sri Prabhupada Ki, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki, ISKCON BBT Founder Sharyas Divine Grace Sri Prabhupada Ki, Namacharya Sri Haridas Thakur Ki, Samavata Bhakti Vrinda Ki, Harinam Sankirtan Ki, Grantaraj Bhagavatam Ki, Jai Nitai Gaur Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru, to Sri Gauranga, all glories to Sri Prabhupada. Om Agyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Sadakaya Taksurunmritam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Karamaham Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Jita Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tvam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakandvitam Scha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanusuti Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tirubhyasya Kripa Sindhubhya Evasya Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Sarasatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is a very means of conquest, let us first offer respectful obeisances unto Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremmost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Sri Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayasabhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Tamashloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. By regularly hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering a service unto the pure devotee, all that is troublesome within the heart becomes destroyed practically to nil, and loving devotional service unto the Supreme Lord, who is praised with transcendental songs, becomes established as an irrevocable fact. Idam Bhagavatam Nama Puranam Brahma Samhitam Uttamaśloka Charitam Chakara Bhagavan Rishi Nishreyasaya Lokasya Dhanyam Swasya Namaha. This Srimad Bhagavatam, known as the Grantaraj, the king of all Vedic literatures, is the literary incarnation of God. It is compiled by the incarnation of God as Sri Vyasadeva. It is meant for the ultimate good of all people. It is all successful, all blissful, and all perfect. Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadadhara, Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Mukam karot Om Surabhyaya Namaha. Om Surabhyaya Namaha. Om Surabhyaya Namaha. Mukam karoti vasanam pangum langayate girim yatkripat maham bande Sri Gurum Dinataranam. Yatkripat maham bande Sri Gurum Dinataranam. Hare Krishna. Welcome to our Bhagavatam class. We are continuing 11th Canto, Chapter 17, entitled Description of the Varnasrama System. Yesterday we read text 22, and so we will continue from text 23. Mekhala Jina Dandaksha Brahma Sutra Kamandalun Jatilo Dhauta Dad Vaso Rakta Pitha Kushan Dadhat Mekalajina dandaksha Brahma Sutra Kamandalun Jatilo Dhauta Dadvaso Rakta Pitha Kushan Dadhat Mekalajin Dandaksha Brahma Sutra Kamandalun Jatilo Dhauta Dadvaso Rakta Pita Kushan Dadhat Mekala Jinadan Daksha Brahma Sutra Kamandalun Jatilo Dhauta Dadvaso Rakta Pita Kushan Dadhat Makalajina Dandaksha Brahma Sutra Kamandalun Jatilo Dhauta Dadvaso Rakta Pita Kushandadat
Mekhalajina Dandaksha Brahma Sutra Kamandalum Jatilo Dhauta Dadvaso Rakta Pita
Kushandadat Meghalajita Dandaksha Brahma Sutra Kamandalun Jatilo Dhauta Dadvaso Rakta Pita Kushandadat Mekala belt, Ajina deerskin, Danda staff, Aksha bead necklace, Brahma Sutra, Brahmana thread, Kamandalun and water pot, Jatilaha with matted, unruly hair, Adauta without polishing, bleaching or ironing, Dat Vasaha the teeth and clothes, Rakta Pita without accepting a luxurious or sensuous seat. Sensuous seat. Interesting. I think I'm sitting on a sensuous seat, maybe. Mean like too much comfort, right? Kushan, Kusha grass, Dadhat, carrying in his hand. Translation and purport by the disciples of Srila Prabhupada. The brahmachari should regularly dress with a belt of straw and deerskin garments. He should wear matted hair, carry a rod and water pot, and be decorated with aksha beads and a sacred thread. Carrying pure kusha grass in his hand, he should never accept a luxurious or a sensuous sitting place. He should not unnecessarily polish his teeth, nor should he bleach and iron his clothes. Kind of repeat after me. The brahmachari should regularly dress with a belt of straw and deerskin garments. He should wear matted hair, carry a rod and water pot, and be decorated with aksha beads
and be decorated with aksha beads
and a sacred thread.
and sacred thread.
Carrying pure kusha grass in his hand,
Carrying pure kusha grass in his hand,
he should never accept
he should never accept
a luxurious
a luxurious
or sensuous sitting place.
or sensuous sitting place.
He should not
He should not
unnecessarily polish his teeth,
unnecessarily polish his teeth,
nor should he bleach
nor should he bleach
and iron his clothes.
and iron his clothes.
We're not following this. Our sannyasis are having iron cloth and... Okay, purport. The word adhauta dad vasa indicates that a renounced brahmachari is not concerned with a with a glistening smile to attract the opposite sex, nor does he pay much attention to his outer garments. Brahmachari life is meant for austerity and obedience to the spiritual master, so that later in life, when one becomes a businessman, politician, or intellectual brahmana, one will be able to call upon resources of character, discipline, self-control, austerity, and humility. Student life, as described here, is far different from the mindless hedonism known as modern education. Of course, in the modern age, Krishna-conscious brahmacharis cannot artificially adopt the ancient dress and ritualistic duties described here, but the essential values of self-control, purity, and obedience to a bona fide spiritual master are just as necessary today as they were in the Vedic times. Translation again: the brahmachari should regularly dress with a belt of straw and deerskin garments. He should wear matted hair, carry a rod and water pot, and be decorated with aksha beads and a sacred thread. Carrying pure kusha grass in his hand, he should never accept a luxurious or sensuous sitting place. He should not unnecessarily polish his teeth, nor should he bleach and iron his clothes. So we get a little insight of how brahmachari life was in the we can say bygone days, in the olden days. These are descriptions going back 5,000 years. As underlined, actually, although present-day brahmacharis don't follow all of the prescribed processes given here, the basic fundamental principles remain the same. The fundamental principles being that of becoming disciplined, living under the care and guidance of the spiritual master, learning to be a menial servant and avoiding any type of luxury. Similar instructions were given by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to Raghunath Das Goswami, for example. I forget the exact verse, but one should not dress in a, especially brahmachari should have simple dress. Of course, we are meeting the public, so we have to dress neatly, but brahmachari should keep it as simple as possible. And also, Lord Chaitanya instructed Raghunath Das Goswami to not eat luxuriously. Very difficult when you have someone like Narahari Thakur who's preparing all kinds of preparations. So, brahmachari should be practicing different austerities, so that also mentioned in the purport here, so that later on in life, because brahmachari, years of brahmachari, the training years of a brahmachari are meant to prepare him to take up some particular responsibility in either as a brahmana, kshatriya, or vaishya. Generally, Gurukul is for training such individuals, and there's so many different occupations within these three divisions that are there. So just like we hear about primary and secondary instructions, primary should never be changed. Primary means most important. Secondary, of course, means less important. So there can be changes in secondary instructions, but the primary instructions and the primary purpose of brahmacharya life remains as important today as it was previously. And this is, Prabhupada wanted that we train up individuals in brahmachari life. Actually, every young man, every young boy is meant to be trained up, if not directly in the Gurukul, as we discussed yesterday. Not everyone will go to Gurukul, but the same concepts and principles, they are more rigidly, we could say, followed in a structured educational institution like Gurukula. So let's continue reading here. Yes. What are akshabid? Rudraksha? No. What's akshabid? Anyone know?
It could be Rudraksha because Aksha means
Aksha eyes, eh?
tears.
Huh?
Aksha means tears.
Ear.
Tears or sweat, both is Aksha.
Huh?
Tears or sweat
Or tears.
or sweat, both is Aksha.
But aksha is
different meanings in one Sanskrit word can have.
yeah, that's
So it
That's-
could be an
that's sometimes a problem, yeah. Different meanings are there. Depend.
Actually, for us, it means like
Oh,
because here it says bead necklace. Aksha means bead necklace.
akshabid, yeah. I thought aksha was connected with sight, eyes, pundarik aksha.
That's what I told you. It is tears or sweat.
Okay. Anyway, yeah. In Sanskrit, there are one same word may have different meaning. Beads. So beads is not a new invention, as some may think. Yeah. Okay. Text 24 and 25 have practically no purport. So 24. Snana bhojana homeshu
Snana-bhodana-homeshu
Japutade savag yataha Na chindyan naka romani
Nachindyan-nakaromani
Kaksho phasta gatanyati
Kaksho-vastagatanyapi
Romani. Okay. Translation and a short purport. A brahmachari should always remain silent while bathing, eating, attending sacrificial performances, chanting japa, or passing stool and urine. He should not cut his nails and hair, including the armpit and pubic hair. Purport. Narada Muni gives a similar technical description of Vedic brahmachari life in the Canto 7, chapter 12 of Srimad Bhagavatam. Yeah. Yes, we find similar. So, Prabhupada would generally take his meals sitting silently, sitting alone also, facing the wall, because it's we tend to forget, but actually taking prasadam is is coming in contact with the Supreme Lord. The Lord is present in the form of his prasadam. So these are, practical guidelines. Brahmachari should not be what is called frivolous, too much I guess passionate, worldly, yeah. Just like it mentions how, was it? Yeah, Narada Muni was telling, I was not attracted to sports. I was having some of these characteristics, being quiet, silent. Yeah.
I've seen the local culture manage they sit towards the wall, and I think it's coming from culture also. The locals usually they face the wall, they hide their food so others cannot see what they are eating, and they eat silently in Bengal.
In Bengal, eh? Okay. Yes, I've seen that also. People they still do that. They'll eat in front of a wall.
Yeah.
I mean, privately, kind of. Yeah, means it's a kind of a private activity. It's a sacred activity, actually. Taking prasadam is meant to be a sacred activity because it's sacred food. And
also, they don't want other people's vision to fall on their food. They kind of protect.
Right. Yes.
Because it might contaminate consciousness.
Right.
Among devotees, they don't mind.
Prabhupada said a number of things, of course, regarding prasadam. It's also there in the Shastra that food, of course, it needs to be offered, but it should not be seen by animals before we take it because it'll become contaminated. Okay. Text 25. Reto navakirej jatu brahmavritta dhara swayam avakirne vaga yapsu yatha sustri padam japit. Translation: on observing the vow of celibate brahmachari life, one observing the vow of celibate brahmachari life should never pass semen. If the semen by chance spills out of itself, the brahmachari should immediately take bath in water, control his breath by pranayama, and chant the Gayatri mantra. So, of course, no purport here, but in Vedic culture, the whole purpose of brahmachari life also referred to as celibacy, where where one understands the importance of retaining one's semen, which is practically unknown in modern day society. Individuals are not aware of the role that semen actually plays biologically in the body. It's just like when the body biologically, anyone who's a doctor will understand. I guess more so, but we can all understand to some extent that until this body biologically grows to its full youthhood, it should not be obstructed in its growth as it is happening today by all kinds of activities which are bringing, we could say, which are affecting negatively the growth of the body, whether it's intoxicants, for example, obviously. A young body, the more it's exposed to intoxicants in whatever shape or form, and also so many of the modern gadgets that are being used today, and in particular here, as the verse is explaining, the retention of semen really helps the body to become healthy. And of course, Prabhupada also mentions how just like when we take milk is meant to help produce good brain, which in turn helps one to understand things of a spiritual nature more easily. So in a similar way, retention of semen, we read from Shastra how semen actually is meant to move upwards. And we know there are different practices of yoga. In particular, what is it? what's that particular yoga that tries to bring up
Kundalini.
Kundalini? Yeah,
Kundalini is the energy. Kriya Yoga is.
Kriya Yoga, Kundalini. Anyone ever practice Kundalini, Kriya Yoga?
Kundalini I used to.
Kundalini.
Before I came.
Okay, what stage did you reach?
I was 16 years old. I had a guru.
Oh, okay.
He used to monitor me remotely from another place.
Oh,
I used to practice.
okay. So you got an early start. Yeah. What we do with our body, we're not aware of this, especially when we are young, because when one has a young body, the senses are very strong naturally, and if one is not properly guided, he will, give in to all kinds of sensual activities, which actually will be detrimental to the body, especially in the matter of passing semen. And the end result of all of this, of course, there are effects during one's youth, but they especially come out later in old age. Um, one reason, I'm sure it's not the only reason, but one reason why in, let's say, modern day society, a lot of older people become what is called senile, right? Senile means you kind of like revert to becoming again like a child, childlike. You lose your sense of being, or yeah, you forget sometimes quite severely, and also the body is more susceptible. It's very interesting actually, because in Ayurveda this is studied quite in detail, and the importance of they speak of, what is it, oja, right?
Life force.
Huh?
Life force. Life force.
Light force, life force. Yeah, right. Um, and this oja, the presence of semen helps actually. We read about the descriptions of the residents of Dwarka, and the purport Prabhupada points out how the residents of Dwarka appear very young. The elders, and they have a luster, kind of glow from their body. Yeah. Whereas we see in the West, especially, that is there. I mean, that glow goes very quickly, and
Body ages very fast. When they lose ojas, the body ages quickly.
yeah, the body ages more quickly, and then but the bodily strength, and then the subtle body also becomes affected. You cannot remember. You lose your different faculties, etc., like that. So just even on a purely biological level, there are many advantages of following what is being explained here. So actually there's a main purport that we're coming to now, which is, yeah. Oh, no, there's one more verse that doesn't have a purport, which is text 26. Agnyarka charya go vipra
Ajñākācārya go vipra.
guru vridha suranna shuchihi
Guru vridha suran suchihi.
Samahita upasita
Samahita upasita
Sandhye dve yata vag japan.
Sanjete yatavak japan.
Japan has made it in the Bhagavatam. Japa. Translation: purified and fixed in consciousness, the brahmachari should worship the fire god, sun, acharya, cows, brahmanas, guru, elderly, respectable persons, and demigods. He should perform such worship at sunrise and sunset, without speaking, but by silently chanting or murmuring the appropriate mantras. Yeah. So daily performance of yajna, and being mindful of important personalities, as mentioned here, including cows, brahmanas, elders, etc. Yeah. So this is next one is well-known verse, I believe. Yeah, text 27. Acharyam mama vijaniyan
Acharyam mam vijaniyam
navamanyeta karhichit
navamanyeta karhiche
namasya bhudya suyeta
namatya buddhya suyeta
sarvadeva mayo guru.
sarvadeva mayo guru.
Translation and purport: one should know the Acharya as myself and never disrespect him in any way. One should not envy him, thinking him an ordinary man, for he is the representative of all the demigods. Purport. This verse appears in the Chaitanya Charitamrita Adilila 146. His Divine Grace, Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Pri Vrajakacha Stotra Satta Sisimad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada has commented on this verse as follows. Okay, so that's why it's a long purport. They've taken Prabhupada's purport here. This is a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam 11:17-27. Spoken by Lord Krsna when he was questioned by Uddhava regarding the four social and spiritual orders of society. He was specifically instructing how a brahmachari should behave under the care of a spiritual master. A spiritual master is not an enjoyer of facilities offered by his disciples. He is like a parent. Without the attentive service of his parents, a child cannot grow to manhood. Similarly, without the care of the spiritual master, one cannot rise to the plane of transcendental service. The spiritual master is also called Acharya, or a transcendental professor of spiritual science. Manusamhita 2140 explains the duties of an acharya, describing that a bona fide spiritual master accepts charge of disciples, teaches them the Vedic knowledge with all its intricacies, and gives them their second birth. The ceremony performed to initiate a disciple into the study of spiritual science is called upaniti, or the function that brings one nearer to the spiritual master. One who cannot be brought nearer to a spiritual master cannot have a sacred thread, and thus he is indicated to be a Shudra. The sacred thread worn on the body of a Brahmana, Kshatriya, or Vaishya is a symbol of initiation by the spiritual master. It is worth nothing if worn merely to boast of high parentage. The duty of the spiritual master is to initiate a disciple with the sacred thread ceremony. And after this samskara, or purificatory process, the spiritual master actually begins to teach the disciple about the Vedas. A person born a Shudra is not barred from such spiritual initiation, provided he is approved by the spiritual master, who is duly authorized to award the disciple the right to be a Brahmana, if he finds him perfectly qualified. In the Vayu Purana, an acharya is defined as one who knows the import of all the Vedic literatures, explains the purport of the Vedas, abides by their rules and regulations, and teaches his disciples to act in the same way. Only out of immense compassion does the personality of Godhead reveal himself as the spiritual master. Therefore, in the dealings of an acharya, there are no activities but those of transcendental loving service to the Lord. He is the Supreme Personality of Servitor Godhead, which Prabhupada refers to as Sevak Bhagavan. Sevak Bhagavan. There's Sevya. Sevya Bhagavan is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, and Sevak Bhagavan, as described here, the Supreme Personality of Servitor Godhead. It is worthwhile to take shelter of such a steady devotee who is called Asray Vigraha, or the manifestation or form of the Lord, of whom one must take shelter. If one poses himself as an acharya but does not have an attitude of servitorship to the Lord, he must be considered an offender, and this offensive attitude disqualifies him from being an acharya. The bona fide spiritual master always engages in unalloyed devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By this test, he is known to be a direct manifestation of the Lord and a genuine representative of Sri Nityananda Prabhu. Such a spiritual master is known as Acharya Deva. Influenced by an envious temperament and dissatisfied because of an attitude of sense gratification, mundaners criticize a real acharya. In fact, however, a bona fide acharya is non-different from the personality of Godhead, and therefore to envy such an acharya is to envy the personality of Godhead himself. This will produce an effect subversive to transcendental realization. As mentioned previously, a disciple should always respect the spiritual master as a manifestation of Sri Krishna, but at the same time, one should always remember that a spiritual master is never authorized to imitate the transcendental pastimes of the Lord. False spiritual masters pose themselves as identical with Sri Krishna in every respect to exploit the sentiments of their disciples, but such impersonalists can only mislead their disciples, for their ultimate aim is to become one with the Lord. This is against the principles of the devotional cult. And the last paragraph, the real Vedic philosophy is Achintya Beta Beta Tattva, which establishes everything to be simultaneously one with and different from the personality of Godhead. Srila Raghunath Das Goswami confirms that this is the real position of a bona fide spiritual master, and says that one should always think of the spiritual master in terms of his intimate relationship with Mukunda, Sri Krishna. Srila Jiva Goswami in his Bhakti Sandarbha 2.13 has clearly defined that a pure devotee's observation of the spiritual master and Lord Shiva as one with the personality of Godhead exists in terms of their being very dear to the Lord, not identical with him in all respects. Following in the footsteps of Srila Raghunath Das Goswami and Srila Jiva Goswami, later acharyas like Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur have confirmed the same truths. In his prayers to the spiritual master, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur confirms that all the revealed scriptures accept the spiritual master to be identical with the personality of Godhead because he is very dear and confidential servant of the Lord. Gaudiya Vaishnavas therefore worship Srila Gurudev, the spiritual master, in the light of his being the servitor of the personality of Godhead. In all the ancient literatures of devotional service and in the more recent songs of Srila Narottam Das Thakur, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and other unalloyed Vaishnavas, the spiritual master is always considered to be either one of the confidential associates of Srimati Radharani or a manifested representation of Srila Nityananda Prabhu. So this, quite elaborate purport given by Srila Prabhupada that he gave in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So it was quite appropriate to put it in this verse here. So just, it means in Gurukul is where one begins and cultivates this type of understanding that I am a menial servant of my spiritual master, and of course this is meant to be the fundamental principle, not only for those in Gurukul, but in the Vedic culture, and definitely has been especially highlighted and demonstrated in the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his associates as well. Okay, nice. Any comments or questions on this?
A few verses ago, we were discussing how Krishna spoke at the beginning of Treta Yuga, spoke from his heart, the Vedas, only the three Vedas, and we were wondering why after such a yuga, again, Krishna had to speak one more time. So this covering is always taking place, like even when Krishna says, I spoke to sun god and now I'm speaking again, Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna.
Yeah.
And also when Lord Chaitanya came, after his associates left, the whole area was covered with Ganga. And after 100 years, when Bhaktivinoda Thakur again revived, even with varnasrama, we are going through a similar phase where it's almost gone, destroyed, and then we're trying to revive it.
It seems to be, you're making the point how Krishna at different times speaks this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, and but he needs to speak it again and again because it seems that knowledge gets covered or gets lost, and even more recently, as you rightly pointed out, this very same thing happened in the case of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and I mean quite in a very prominent manner, in the sense that soon after the disappearance of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his immediate very powerful preachers, I mean Narottam Das Thakur and Shyamananda Pandit and Srinivasacharya, they were like, they carried on for some time, I guess until maybe they left also. And then, as you pointed out, shortly after that, for the next 300 years, practically speaking, the whole mission of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went like sideways, was taken up by Sahajas, etc., like that, and Bhaktivinoda Thakur had to. So it seems to be same thing in terms of varnashram as well. That is the nature of the material world. Material world gets individuals in the material world get covered at different times, and therefore the Lord, either directly through his incarnations or through different, it's like individuals, various acharyas, again, so it seems to be like a constant
Revival.
Yeah, constant activity of again bringing to the forefront this knowledge and this. That's the nature of the material world, isn't it? It is the influence of modes of material nature are very, very strong. So at different times, the knowledge gets lost or gets covered and whatnot. But it seems that this will happen in a more, we could say, prominent way in Kali Yuga, and we hear from Shastra how we have this unique and rare opportunity to help introduce the mission of Lord Chaitanya, which is meant to be there for only a certain period of time, also 10,000 years, and then the whole of Kali Yuga will go its own way. So that's the nature of the material world, where I suppose we can understand by this also how it is quite rare to kind of get an opportunity to be part of revival periods. It's like with the advent of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, it's like definitely a revival. Again, that knowledge has been introduced, even though it was again tampered with, and again revived by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and then even after the departure of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, similar thing happened, isn't it? The members of the Gaudiya Math kind of like divided, and the whole mission became negatively affected. And then I remember hearing how Prabhupada was like, Prabhupada never really, although he was told by his, spiritual master to preach to the West and to preach in the English language, which he began to do way back from 1944 by preaching in the English language through his Back to Godhead magazine. But we all know how Prabhupada was reluctant to take sannyas, and was kind of waiting for some of his godbrothers, many of whom, many, were sannyasis and very educated also. So Prabhupada, I heard how he was sitting in Vrindavan and kind of like just observing the time going by and no one really coming forward to take the mission. And then it was becoming more and more obvious that nobody within the Gaudiya Math was willing or maybe able or whatever to take it up. And I heard somewhere where Prabhupada had told maybe when he was in Vrindavan, possibly some of his godbrothers visiting or something, and he was telling them that none of you are going to take this up. I mean, nobody's showing any signs of, meaning that Prabhupada, especially because Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was appearing to him in a dream, take sannyas, take sannyas, which Prabhupada could understand that means, wow. So it was for Prabhupada to have done what he did, it was like a momentous, really a major kind of undertaking, obviously. And Prabhupada, although always fully, completely surrendered to the words of his spiritual master, he felt the weight of what it meant, to go to the West and to take up this mission. And of course, throughout his whole preaching activities, more so after going to the West, in one lecture, Prabhupada says, very interesting, he's talking to his, giving a class, and he's telling, actually, finally I did come, at the ripened age of 70, and practically before coming to the West, or practically before going to the West, Prabhupada says in a very humble way, practically I did nothing. Not that he didn't do anything, but so many things. Of course, it took maybe 1 year to kind of the first year of Prabhupada's being in the West, not that many things were happening, but then slowly, gradually, seeds were being sown, and then some some young people were taking interest, coming forward, etc. And then within a very short time, actually, Krishna is like just showered his blessings, so that out of practically nothing, a whole. So so ultimately, in the case of Prabhupada, I guess in the case of other personalities also, it is an important ingredient to the success of any such attempt is the mercy of Krishna. Krishna's, blessing such endeavor.
And say Krishna wants to glorify his devotees.
Yes.
Can we say almost similar thing happened after Prabhupada left with ISKCON as well?
Yeah, it's amazing.
Now, a few sincere souls like yourself are keeping it together. There is a lot of discussion how Prabhupada is not in the center in many activities of ISKCON, actually.
Yeah, Prabhupada explains, of course, how what is it? After the Acharya leaves, it is expected that there is a chaos for some time, but it should only be for some time. But yeah, we that challenge remains present, and all of us who are somehow connected with the movement of Lord Chaitanya have a great responsibility to see how it can go move forward. I was just reading one devotee from India who is now in the West, in America, was mentioning that he went on Harinam Sankirtan recently, and did he also to distribute some books, and he was making the observation that people are still interested to hear, even though it's so many years later. But the formula, when you give people a little bit of time, give them an opportunity to hear something they're not familiar with, it's just like this one disciple of Bhakti Vikas Maharaj who distributed 4,000 books in one day.
Yeah.
I mean, unthinkable, Somebody sent me a picture of the first devotee in America, a proper disciple, who broke a record, 40 years ago by distributing in one day 200 books. And, 40 years afterwards, that same devotee is, somebody took a picture with this new brahmachari who distributed 4,000 books.
One day, 4,000.
4,000 books in one day. And yeah, but he's doing it very intelligently. He's, from what I just recently came to know, he stands in front of some kind of Indian shop where a lot of people go to buy things somewhere in America. And, there are many, because in America, not only in America, there's so many Indian people are there. So he stands outside, and he's prepared. He has about 20, 30, 40 sets of books. The whole Bhagavatam set, It's like in America, during Christmas time, people get gifts, packages. So somehow he convinces people, this is a treasure. I have here, I don't know exactly what he conveys, but he has a whole approach, which, because he's so enthusiastic, he himself is he's completely immersed in the Sankirtan mission and the mood of the acharyas and the mood of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to deliver the fallen souls of Kali Yuga. And of course, he doesn't tell them that they're fallen souls, but he's in that mood. And he's also appreciating, naturally, like all of us, maybe especially when we first came to Krishna consciousness, wow, these are very important books. This knowledge is very important knowledge. Otherwise, we would not have become devotees. So he's really so convinced and so intensely absorbed that whoever he comes in contact with, who will give him a little, who will hear him a little bit, he just brings them into his bubble, kind of, and they become like ecstatic, and because a set of books is like maybe $100 or $200. I don't know exactly, but it's not just $5. It means that people are on the spot, ready to buy. Even one person became so ecstatic that that person bought three sets of books, one for himself and then for his two friends, maybe his mother or whatever, So somehow he's able to convey to them the importance of this knowledge, the importance of these books. Like when I first came to know about Bhagavatam, to me it was like big revelation. I mean, I was just coming to the temple and I knew about Bhagavad Gita, but I didn't know about Bhagavatam. Bhagavatam is like, it's compared to ordinary books, other books, there's no comparison. I mean, right? So So the point being that even today in our 21st century, if people are approached properly, they'll take interest and they can be, I mean, ultimately everybody can become, should become, is meant to become, actually already everyone is a devotee of Krishna, just we have forgotten that we are eternal spirit souls, etc. like that, yeah. Okay, I think we're gone over our time. Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Jai Sri Prabhupada ki, Gaura Premanande. Yeah.